military has been systematically torturing detainees in the wake of pro-democracy protests in the country.
March 2021. People in Yangon still had faith. Those hopes were crushed as the junta moved in and swept up hundreds of fleeing protesters.
During the current crisis unfolding in Myanmar, events are happening so fast that it can feel challenging to keep up with them. Although we're working to increase our podcast production far beyond what we've ever done before to meet the needs of this ever-changing crisis, we feel that the podcasts alone still do not address the full range of everything going on. So we encourage you to also check out the blogs on our website, insightmyanmar.org. Also feel free to check out our other social media sites. Just look for Insight Myanmar or Burma Dhamma on your preferred platform. And to engage in this topic more deeply and discuss with other practitioners, head over to the Facebook group, Meditation in Burma/Myanmar. With that, let's head to our show.
Tanda comes from a small village in Rakhine State. She is actively involved with a number of Arakan civil society organizations and youth groups. She was interviewed on May 2nd. What I feel sad about, though, is that most young people in Myanmar do not have the opportunity to study at all at the moment, whether online or offline, which means they're basically losing their future. I was in Yangon when the coup happened. I had a lot of missed calls from my friends and activists I work with that night. And when I finally answered one at around 4:30 a.m., I found out there had been a military coup. Actually, I wasn't that shocked. I had suspected the coup would happen. My first thought was that, based on our experience in Rakhine State, people needed to prepare for an internet shutdown and for not being able to communicate with their loved ones. So I began to calmly spread this message with my network. In contrast to many of my friends, I never really thought of going out into the streets to protest against the coup. You know, while people in Yangon and NLD supporters, mostly from the Bama majority, were experiencing the so-called democratic transition in recent years, we in Rakhine State continued to live and suffer under a military dictatorship. After the coup, these very same groups began calling for unity of all of Myanmar. But where were they when our ethnic people were dying in communal and armed conflicts? It is unfair and very painful. Actually, many people in Rakhine State feel as much distrust and even hatred towards the Bama majority as they do towards the military. Because of this, I felt a little out of place in Yangon after the coup, so I decided to go back to my home state. When I arrived, I met with some youth who were thinking of organizing a protest. We discussed it for a while, especially the high risk of getting arrested or even killed, since the military presence in Rakhine State is much bigger than in Yangon. We asked ourselves, who is it exactly we would be protesting for, and do we deserve to get jailed or killed for that? In the end, we decided against it. That is why Rakhine State is silent now. We don't talk about the military, and there is no CDM here. What affected my life post-coup the most have been the progressive internet shutdowns. I had to cancel many of my plans, like an online civic education course for university students that I had been preparing together with some of my seniors. I was also unable to move abroad for my master's studies as I had originally planned, since my flight got cancelled in part due to the coup here and in part due to a COVID-19 outbreak over there. Luckily, I can study online, but I've had to move a couple of times in order to secure a stable internet connection. What I feel sad about, though, is that most young people in Myanmar do not have opportunity to study at all at the moment, whether online or offline, which means they're basically losing their future. Of course, the coup has also affected me and everyone around me psychologically. The constant stream of bad news is heartbreaking. When I get too stressed, I spend time alone, go for walks on the beach, listen to music or exercise. Sometimes I write down my thoughts and feelings about what's going on in the country. In my family, there are different opinions on the current events, so it has become a very sensitive topic for us. For the first few weeks after the coup, we couldn't even discuss it. I experienced something similar with my personal network as well. First, I was sharing my opinions about the political situation very openly, both online and offline. But then this led to fights with friends and other activists, and people began accusing me of being selfish. So in the end, I decided to stay silent. I feel like everyone wants to get media attention nowadays, but I would say that the world needs to listen to the unheard voices in Myanmar before it overgeneralizes the situation in the country. I'm personally worried about my state, because in contrast to the past, when there was a lot of discussion, Rakhine State is now silent. It feels scary, and I worry there will be more fighting in the future.
At the very first day of February, I didn't know how much that the coup can affect it on the civilians because I had no experience. But on February 7, my friends started protesting. Actually, they were protesting before that, but I didn't get any content before it. Then I also wanted to try with them. At first, it's just for fun and just to get a new experience. Cause I don't like. I'm not a fan of NLD nor the military. But I do love the freedom and democracy that the past government gave us. So I started protesting on February 7, and other of my neighbors also joined the near strikes, like war strikes, or they gather around in the quarter and they shout the chant. And one of my neighbor also included, but he's not the one who protests. He just make the free ride for the protester, and because he had a car, and he wanted to use it usefully. He was a good guy because when we heard that some gangs wanted to burn down the houses in the quarter. I didn't know why they wanted to do it, but they the youth in the quarter start um, making a group to wait for the gangs, not to ban the houses or not to hurt anyone. He was also a member, and he was an active guy. But on February 28th, he uh, he drove for the protester like he used to do. But on that day, he tried to grab someone who was shot by the military. At the time, he came out from his car and he was also shot to the neck. And his friends and neighbors was very shocked, and they grabbed him to the home first. Then they took him to the hospital and take an operation that was successful, and he was almost alive. But the military inquired the ones who they shoot, and if uh, if there is anyone died because of them, they they grab the dead bodies and they do something. They did something. I don't know what did they do, and they sent back to the family later after weeks, a week or 2 weeks. I'm not sure. Sometimes the family don't even get the dead bodies. They just get the ash of their family member. And my neighbor also, my neighbor's family also worry about their son. Their son does worry to grab by the military. That's why they moved to the another hospital. He was almost conscious again, but he died on the way to the hospital. I I couldn't say how much he was painful, and we went to his funeral ceremony, and there are just very few people, and everyone is crying and couldn't believe what happened, because he was almost alive, but died um, that in that way he shouldn't be.
I see. So thank you for telling me this story. I'm sure this was very difficult to go back to those experiences that were so painful and that happened at the start. And you're describing your neighbor who was, like many people in those early days of the protest, was providing using his car and his driving skills to be able to bring protesters from one place to another. And as he was providing this free service, he was shot in the neck. Or is there any idea who shot him or where it came from or why he was shot?
Oh no, actually I didn't know. I just know he was shot in Blatant. It's somewhere in Shango. There were a lot of people. I don't know exactly.
Mm-hmm. And then he went and had an operation, and the operation was successful. And at that point, after a successful operation, what should have been the protocol? Was he healthy enough to go home and be discharged, or was he being watched over at the hospital? But what should have happened after that successful operation, and what happened instead?
I didn't go to the hospital, but some of our neighbors also wanted. So they told me that his fingers are moving after the operation, after couples of hours after the operations, and so he maybe he could almost go home, but the nurses and the doctor didn't dare not let him go off from the hospital for a moment, because they are afraid of the military. So they let him move to another hospital. But that hospital is also under the control of the military. So if he even got there, he won't survive. He wouldn't survive.
And does anyone know how he ended up passing away, what he died of?
Someone said he was dead because lack of oxygen on the way. So I'm not sure how, because of the nurse mistake or just because of the oxygen failure. I'm not sure.
Right. Yes, understood. And even something worse if it was something deliberate on the part of the military. But it sounds like he was doing a good thing. And in terms of the volunteering work that he was doing for the protesters of driving them around. And then he was shot, presumably by the military. And basically he was then in trouble for getting shot.
Yeah. I've also another example how cruel the military is. There's a guy. He is the boyfriend of my cousin's sister. He knew someone who was a volunteer. Yes, he knew someone who was a volunteer in the strike. They drove the ambulance car, and when the military caught them, they was hit by the can. Till their helmet took off. They couldn't do anything back to them. They just sitting in front of them and being hidden by them. Someone was dead. Yeah. There were about three people.
Yeah, it's hard to understand the cruelty and the inhumanity faced with this military. And with what happened to your neighbor, that's obviously a very traumatic event, and it sounds like he was a very good person. And the shock of a good person being treated that way, and the pain he must have gone through, and then the pain that his family is dealing with, it's really unimaginable. And in speaking to you before the interview, you were mentioning this example with your neighbor was not just a really terrible, bad, traumatic thing that happened, but it also had a very profound effect on you personally, because as you explained it to me before we're speaking now, and as you mentioned at the beginning of this interview, you were not necessarily pro or anti-military or pro or anti-NLD, and you might have been a bit indifferent when the coup first happened and you went with your friends to protest, but you weren't really personally invested and weren't really sure about all that was going on. But you said when this happened to your neighbor, this suddenly something changed inside you because of this. So can you elaborate on that a little?
Yeah, because I said I'm not a fan of NLD or in military, because in 2020, at the first of 2020, maybe March, the COVID infected to Myanmar. At the time, all of the parties seduced the people. Even though there are a lot of COVID cases are increasing, they don't care. The government didn't care about it, and they just trying to catch the attention of the people to get more votes. So I hate that, because there were a lot of people infected by that ceremonies. So I'm not a fan of none of them. But later, I know how the military is cruel that way. So I just want to beat them down.
Yeah, and this might also relate to your background, because as you also shared with me, your grandfather and your father were both soldiers. You had a very close relationship with your grandfather, and you lived among the military until you were 8 years old. So can you describe a bit about your childhood with the Tatmadaw and what it was like having a father and grandfather who came from that organization, how that influenced you and how it conditioned you and what your experiences were with them?
Yeah. My grandfather, he passed away maybe 7 years ago, and he was very kind to me, and he was a patient kind on me and also on his own daughters. Uh, he uh, as he was a soldier, he fought a lot of enemies and he might kill a lot of people. I'm not sure about that, but I didn't know his dark side. How will his dark side be? So I just know his light side, and he was a good person. My father, oh, I don't, I can't even mention with words how much he's a good person. Because he even didn't yell at me since the whole life. Now I'm 26, and he still didn't yell at me, and no beating and nothing. He just very so patient. Even under the condition, I make some mistakes while I was a teenager. My mother is not that patient. So I thought the soldiers are very good, and they're just good guys like the other person and nothing different. When I was a kid, some soldiers also took care of me while my mother is busy and my father was in his office. The other soldiers also played with me, and they were such a good guys. But why the coup started? They they just obey. They have the order the order by the military, and they don't care. They didn't care anyone's life. But mostly are like that. But uh, some still want to try the CDM movement, because I know someone who changed to sorry, who changed the sides. They against the military, and they tried with the civilians. So there are also some good guys in the soldiers.
Right. So how do you make sense of that today? The fact that you have these really warm and beautiful memories of your father and your grandfather, how they took care of their family, and not just financially, but how they just seemed like very warm and compassionate and nice human beings. And they were in this organization, the Tamada, which you're now seeing for what it is. And the dark and the cruel side of it. Do you see, as you look back and reflect it now, and you're going through this transition, do you feel that your father and grandfather were fundamentally good people that were trapped in a bad organization, or do you feel that you only had access to some part of their personality and there was another part of what they were doing and who they were that you never really knew?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe my grandfather might do some bad things. I didn't know, and I can't ask him, but I knew that he fought a lot of battles, but not like my father. Though he was a soldier, he didn't need to go to the front line of the battle. He just stay in the back line and make some paperwork. So he doesn't know about the gangs or fighting people. Maybe because of that, he is a good guy.
I can imagine that must be hard to reconcile and contemplate, as you're learning more information and trying to reflect on your family and history. I imagine that must be quite hard.
Yeah.
So given that family background that you had with growing up among soldiers and having your father and grandfather as part of the military as well, I imagine you had a complicated relationship, and also you're going through your own learning process now. When the coup actually hit on February 1st, given your background, how did you feel about it? You weren't a fan of the NLD. Did you think that the coup was a good thing initially and maybe the military had run the country better, or what were your feelings?
Oh, I just didn't think that the coup is that much bad because, as I told you, I have no experience. But because in the books, and I knew about the dictators. They all were very bad. Like the worst person in the world, like the General Mewin and other people. They did a lot of killing to the civilians, and I I read some books about them, and the cruelty I can imagine, but I didn't read the books, that kind of books, before the coup. So I had no idea, but later I knew more about them, and they are just like psychopath victims.
Right. And so when the coup initially broke, what were your feelings at that time?
Immediate feeling, I can guess a little because before the coup, on January, someone from the military side made a conference meeting. At that meeting, he said they are gonna make a coup. A reporter asked him that can we be assured that you don't make any coup? He said no. So I thought they might do something big before soon. And as far as we guessed, they did it. And most of the people around me also didn't think that coup is that much bad on February 1, because we're just so excited, and our leaders are now detained by the military. What will happen next? But we are sure that they won't kill any of the leaders, because someone is very famous and someone they can choose anyway. So we didn't worry about them, but we worry about our financial problem or other educations or something like that. These are not important in this situation.
Right. You know, it's interesting when you're talking about your family who was involved in the military and then you learning that the military is this fascist mafia organization and having to reconcile that. I realized one of the things that brings to my mind is I had a very strange experience a few years ago when I was in Thailand, and actually, of all things, I was at an oolong tea tasting kind of ceremony with a bunch of different people around the table, and I was sitting next to an older German woman for about 3 hours, and at the very end of the conversation, I don't remember how it happened or how I came to learn, but this woman was the daughter of Hermann Göring, who was one of the top Nazis who developed who was instrumental in the Holocaust of killing all the Jews in the concentration camps. And it was pretty astounding to think that I was seated next to the daughter of one of the greatest war criminals of the 20th century. And of course, being very curious about who this person was, then did some research and looked, and she's written a book, and there's been a documentary about her. She's very much denounced her father and has shame growing up of who she is and how just even her bloodline. And that's a whole other story that is quite interesting in itself. But where it reminds me is she just describes a very happy and warm and friendly family life of her father bringing gifts home and having nice holidays and how he was loving. And I think for some of us, it's quite confusing and shocking to think about examples where someone can be involved in a murderous fascist organization, whether it's the Nazi Party or the Tatmadaw, and committing all these atrocities and crimes against humanity. And yet they're not these total monsters. There can be people involved in these organizations that do try to be ethical and moral, and there could be others like Hermann Göring that are absolute monsters, and they are really the worst of the worst. And yet at the same time, they do have these shreds of humanity in them. There are things they love. There are things they care about. They do have ethical or selfless or loving actions towards others. And so it can be kind of confounding, I think, for those of us not associated or connected to this to think just about the complexity of human nature and of human motivations and such.
Yeah, that's what we are doing right away. Last 2 months ago, someone connected me with a group that is making contents and some side works for the military side. It's more like we are reminding them that there are still things they care about. There are still people they care about. They have to care about. And what if that persons or things were destroyed cruelly by someone you didn't do anything, what will happen? So we question about their empathy. So that's what we are doing right away.
Right. Yeah. So, and getting back to your story where we left off in February, March. So, your neighbor being shot in the neck had this profound influence on changing and redirecting how you felt and what you wanted to do about the coup. And then the young woman being shot in Mandalay was also very traumatic for you. And then the military came out and they denied that they had shot her. And did not admit to the details around her death. And that was another moment on your road to activism and joining the resistance. Why was that so impactful for you?
Yeah, because as I mentioned, he was a very good guy. Even though we weren't friends, he even joined a member to protect the quarter. Actually, he was a guest. It means he just stayed in his friend's home in where we live, near where we live. So he was not from the town. He was not from our town, but he cared about so much. Though he is a guest, he cared about us so much. So why can't we do it? Why can't we protest our neighbors, and why can't we protest our country from that dictators? So that's very clear. I decided I will do anything and I won't stop with no reason till the dictator fall off.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And you had referenced a couple other incidences that also had a profound impact on your decision to be a revolutionary. One of those was the shooting of Ma Tuetue-Kaing in Mandalay, and they denied that they killed her. And then another incident you were involved. It was when you attended a protest that resulted in 30 people that were killed. You were present there, and so you witnessed some of the things unfolding, and then the military denied what happened and made up phony stories about the protesters. So can you tell a little bit about your reaction to both those incidences and why they were so meaningful to you in terms of the future action that it resulted in you following?
Yeah. On that March 27th, that was Emerald Day for them. So our civilians thought they won't kill that much people because the international council is watching over us. We thought that, but the other country don't care that much. And we thought so, and we have no idea what I'm waiting for. So I just put some stuff in my backpack, like the water bottle and extra clothing and some snacks. So I just went to the strikes as ever. But my friends calling me. They keep calling me while I'm on strike. Actually, I don't answer the phone on why I'm on strike because that was so noisy and I can't hear very well. But I just pick up because they call me so many times and they shouted at me, "You have to run because there are a lot of forces are coming to you where you are, and they're gonna kill a lot of people. They guess. So I check to the spot it was right or not, and there are also some people 2 bus stops away. That actually the killing was maybe four bus stops away from me, so I couldn't see clearly, but I heard a lot of gun shootings and a lot of people shouting and running away. My little brother was near there, and he was shot by some smoke bomb. And one of my friends also were also there, so they were also shot by the smoke bombs, and they ran between the alleys, so they escaped. But 2 of my friends' sisters were arrested, just arrested. They weren't hurt any. Uh, so I got back home at the time. And while I was home, my brother was just on the spot. So we have to save him. We picked up him. Actually, my father did. So he also escaped. We didn't have much, but there were about 30 people died. I knew it because the township I went on strike was a township I used to go for many years for my job. So I knew where they didn't lie to me. And someone after some weeks, maybe 2 or 3 weeks, I'm not sure. Maybe I can see the dates. Someone was also hit in the ribs because he went to the spot where the military banning something. He went there to throw water at the fire, but he was also shot and died on the spot. He was my junior friend.
I'm sorry to hear. That's all quite traumatic to take in and to have to experience. And all of these episodes contributed to your decision to want to be a revolutionary and resist this military in every way that you could. And that's coming from a place where, as we've mentioned, when the coup hit, you didn't, unlike many protesters now, you didn't necessarily have this immediate reaction to it, but this grew. So would you say that the decision to be a revolutionary and to play some of the roles you're playing now, which we'll get into in a moment, do you feel that this was a gradual path over the course of February and March that you kind of landed on this is what you would do? Or was there like a moment, like an off on where suddenly light bulb just hit you and you knew this is what you were going to do? Was it more of a gradual or immediate decision?
Yeah, not an immediate decision. Actually, the moments why my neighbors and my junior friends was killed make my decision more stronger. Not just immediate decision. I just wanted to beat them down since they started killing the people without any reason. Like they killed a girl in Naypyidaw and someone in Mandalay, and a lot of people in Yangon, and also in Baku. They did a lot of killing, but you see no regret about that. But someone who joined CDM and his wife told me that she was also very shocked why the soldiers make a lot of killing that much, because she was proud of her husband. Why he got the promotion as a I don't know how to say that position in English. So he got the promotion, and she was proud for her husband. But later, why the soldiers are killing a lot of civilians, like uh, teenagers and even the kids and the 10. So she was also pregnant at the time, so she worried about her future kid. So she decided to join CDM with her husband, and she urged her husband day and night. At first, her husband didn't agree with her, but later he also realized that how um, how those are cruel, and he also worried about his future kids. So they joined CDM and they went to our side.
Mm-hmm. And what I found that's interesting in what you just said is you referenced how when some of the cruelty and the acts of violence took place, for example, your neighbor and some of the people you knew in the township, that this made you angry, this made you dedicated, this hardened your resolve. And what I find interesting about that is in previous revolutions in Myanmar, this often had the opposite effect. This violence scared people, it quieted people, it made them be suppressed and repressed and stay inside their homes. And that allowed the military to win because those who were courageous, who were the minority, would come out and they could easily take care of them while everyone else stayed inside in fear. And, there's been this expression among Generation Z that started out in February of "you messed with the wrong generation." And I think when this saying came out, it was quite, there was some bravado, and it was quite a kind of exciting, proud thing to say. But to be honest, it was said before the difficulty really happened, and so it was hard to know how much the statement really meant. But as we've seen this protest movement progress, I keep coming back to the statement of "you messed with the wrong generation," and it really does seem like something about this generation has decided to act differently than generations before it when the Tamana is doing its tricks of and one of those we see is that when it kills people, when it commits cruelty, when it lies, instead of being scared and silent and staying at home and hoping one wouldn't be targeted, which is the normal human response, people like you have actually gotten angry and more motivated, more active, and wanting to join the resistance. So I wonder if you've noticed that, and with looking at your generation and your parents' or grandparents' generation, if you've seen that difference and why you think that difference is there.
Yeah. At first, my parents also want me not to do that much. That much mean they are also scared of that I might kill by military, or I might be attacked by them. So they wanted to stop me, but I think that I really know that what if I don't do what if I don't do this kind of revolutionary things? Someone will make instead of me, but the strength from our side will be weaker. So I don't want it, and we need more strength, and we wanted to end it very fast. We are losing our rights, like human rights, women rights, man rights, whatever, Thai rights, everything. We're losing it. Actually, they have no rights to order us just because they have the cans. Because this is not the way to rule the people. This is just the way to rule the animals or something else. We're not animals. We're just humans, and we know what to do and what is right and what is wrong. They can't teach us by the wrong way. So actually, I don't even know why I'm not scared of why even the people near me are killing and adopting. I don't know, but I just know I have to do it. I forgot to mention you that someone also detained by the military because he was a leader of a strike. That was our childhood friend, my little brother's childhood friend. He was a very smart and good guy. He led a strike near our quarter, but he was detained since March till now. Though though the gen, though Mia Line released some detainer last 3 days ago, but he wasn't involved. And a lot of people were also arrested after released. That's also a cruel thing, right?
Yeah, sure. That's one of many, many cruel things that's going on. And you had mentioned when you became more resolved to be a revolutionary, your mother was very scared for you, as any mother would be. However, I'm also curious about your father. Your father was a soldier in the Tamada, and as far as you're comfortable sharing, what has been his feelings towards the coup?
Yeah, I was also wondering, will he stop me? Actually, no. But he just encouraged me and warned me what to do in the if someone should to lay on the ground or to find somewhere to hide or to cover or if you hear that kind of sound, that's a sound bomb, or if you hear that kind of sound, that's a smoke bomb, and that's reagent, or that's rubber bullets. So he taught me some important tricks.
That's incredible. So your father actually prepared you for the combat that you were going to find yourself in, and to rather than preventing you from leaving the house or from being involved, he actually provided you war tips of how to stay safe.
Yeah, they know they couldn't. I'm that kind of people. I'm that kind of person. I can't be stoppable. What if I want to do something so bad? So they knew it.
And your father, being a retired soldier, what has been his view of the coup? Does he feel any kind of loyalty still towards the Tamada from his time there?
Oh, actually, he was a retired one since he was 37. It's not normal, right? Because the retired person has to work until they are 60, but he got retired since he was 37. But because of some measures the upper dogs did between infantry and the other general, they got some mess. And my dad's army was from the other side, so they eventually did when they removed all of his people, and he let them in the jail, Sam, and he sent to the countryside to some soldiers, but like the soldier, like my father's, they didn't do any any crime, and also they didn't take any illegal money. That's why they couldn't find any punishment for him. So they just gave him the retirement.
Right. And so what have been his feelings since the coup broke?
Yeah, he was also a protester in 88. Yeah. But not very intense. Just protesting like our first man with his friends. So he didn't know exactly what is right. But later he joined the army because at the time the military was very strong that no one can beat it down. So his parent might thought the military is strong, so if he joined the military, he will also be strong one and maybe good paying one. But their thinkings around in the military. Though he is just their office staff, but my mother has to do some stuff, though she didn't want or not, whatever. So we didn't like the military, and we were happy when we had to get out of it, and we are still very happy while we are outside at this time.
I see. That's interesting. And so all of these events transpired to be able to encourage you to be a revolutionary and help the cause in any way you can. What have you been doing these past number of months to find your place of what you can do to support the resistance?
Oh, yes. At first, at the very first, like February and March, I was a ground protester, but the protesters don't have any weapons, and why the military started fighting us, we don't know how to defend them. So we just stay home in start from April, and later I wanted to join the strikes again after the holiday of April. There's a Blatant festival in April in Myanmar. That's why we don't go out at this time. But later I wanted to join the strike again, but a friend who joined the People Army. The People Army is the PDF, the People Army. So he called me, and he was in somewhere, and the kitchen military, and so he wanted to come back to Yangon, and he said, "Can you support him?" So I said yes, because I was so glad that he called me, because I wanted also to join the other army to fight them back. But he said that's very tired, and I can't be able to hold it. So just support him with money and other stuff, like hiding him in a safe house, and hiding some stuffs in the house without knowing anyone.
So that was one of the first activities that you did that was really starting to actually support the resistance. And what roles have you taken on since then? What are the main things you do that fill your days in terms of how you're supporting the people?
Mostly many by my foreigner friends. They also helped me a lot. And later I joined a group that's spreading side wars and some contents to seduce the soldiers to join CDM. So I was a content warrior.
Mm-hmm. And how do you, so let's take the first thing you said, which was fundraising. How do you go about getting funds? How hard is it to get funds? How are you able to bring about funds? And then what do you do with them?
Yeah, that's, of course, it's difficult under this situation. There's two friends who support me from foreign country. So I got some fund from them, and I give the people who need in the country. And also my friends, Tim and Brianna, they also find a lot of fun writing proposals and making some projects. We earn from it, just like teaching CDM soldiers make me pay, so I can share from that.
Mm-hmm. Let's look at that activity a little more. So you are engaging with the soldiers who have chosen to defect from the Tatmadaw, and you're teaching them English, which is actually your profession, your career before the coup happened, was you were an English teacher. So this is something that you're skilled to do. Can you share a bit about what it's like engaging with these defected soldiers, what you've learned about their, I know you're just teaching them English, but even through that interaction, I'm sure you get to see something of their personality and how the relationship goes, and something about their background or their character just comes out naturally as you're having conversations. What have you learned about these soldiers who've defected through teaching them English?
Yeah, they are very obedient, maybe like natural, and they respect me. Though some are older than me, they respect a lot, and they are so happy why I'm teaching, and the in charge of the classes said they are glad they could make it, and they appreciate that we care about them, because they might also thought that people are hating soldiers. Actually, no, we hate just dictatorship, and we just hate the one who obey to kill the civilians without any reason. So I think we understand each other.
Mm-hmm. How many soldiers are you teaching?
It's just around 14.
That's interesting. Do you ever have conversations with them, like outside of English? Like, do they ever ask you questions about, because they've been in the military, which is a very insular culture. So do they ever ask you questions about life outside, or do you ever talk to them about their time in the military or why you chose to defect, or any conversations that happen outside of English instruction?
Not now yet, but I have a plan to ask them like this, because I want to know more about them. Why did they join CDM, and how much difficult it is? Someone, the in charge one is a wife of a soldier, and she texts me. Actually, not just to me. We have a group to have CDM soldiers' wives and children. So in that group, they text about how much difficult they faced while joining CDM. They are all sick of killing people. They don't want their husband to be a killer. So they decided to join, though it is very difficult, and they have no regret of joining CDM, because we care about them so much. And there are also some more groups that support phone bills, or food for them and the children, so they don't need to worry about their living. We're living like that.
That's interesting, because often when we think of soldiers defecting from the military, we think about how do we reach them, and what messaging do we give them, and how are they being brainwashed, and everything along with that. And what you're saying is actually it's the woman who holds sway in a lot of the decisions. It's the woman who is pushing the soldier. I'm sure it's not, there's different relationships and different power dynamics, but you're saying that in many cases, the woman is the driving force behind encouraging the husband to leave or to stay.
Yeah. The women are the main. Because the husband also might not want to kill the innocent people. Some are very happy to kill, but if they have no background support, they can do it. They couldn't do it, but find the encouraging words from their beloved wives. That's a lot of strength, because wives can do anything, right? So. Mm-hmm.
And I guess these fearsome soldiers that are going out and causing terror in the country, I guess the one thing that they really don't want to handle is the scorn of their wife.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I can also feel that there are a lot of more people want to join CDM, because they are also sick of this situation, and like banking system and other educational system for their children. Also to make money outside is more difficult. So everybody is sick of it.
Yeah.
I hope we will win soon.
Sure. So is there some kind of effort being made to not only target the soldiers, but to actually really go after their wives? If the wives are the ones who are holding some of the power and the decision-making ability, has there been work to try to orient the defection strategies to them to get their ear and to encourage them to use their power over their husbands to try to leave?
Yeah. We have a meeting soon with the soldiers' wives, so I can tell you more detail about that update. I was invited to that meeting, so.
All right, that's really interesting. So, do you know if there's been if other groups have had some kind of strategy or some kind of work trying to make contact with the wives and encourage them to defect?
Yes, we are planning. We are planning about it. So we already have a group about that, and we plan to also seduce and encourage the wives and the children, like giving them making them some classes like knitting and crocheting, or some other teaching some other languages like Spanish or Chinese. So even if they are not in the military, they can do some more works outside and they can earn money by that. So we are planning it.
Yeah, and I guess that the wives, as well as the soldiers, are being treated with respect and humanely and valued and spoken to civilly. And that's quite a contrast to what their experience is in the military, where, again, this is a fascist organization where there is common abuse from senior to junior, and you and the wider people are treating them in a different way than they're accustomed to.
Yeah. In the military, the positions is matter. Just the position matters, because if your husband's position is higher, you can how can I say, you can request anything you want to the other wife who are lower position than your husband. So that's sick.
Mm-hmm. And this also seems to kind of go back to the earlier conversation we were having about the nuance of humanity and of human values, and how even some of the worst Nazis like Hermann Göring or some of the worst people in the Tamada, they probably still have some shred of humanity, or they're kind to their dog or their wife or their kids or someone, that they have some humanity somewhere that can be tapped. And just as in an organization that's as evil and fascist as the Tamada, that there are so many people in there that don't necessarily want to be there or doing what they're doing, or maybe they're caught in the system and making bad decisions, but they can still be reached, they can still be tapped. And that's why this defection strategy and the defection work is so important, because it is a nonviolent means of trying to reach a shred of humanity of, as you said, psychopaths with guns that are causing all of this damage. And the whole mindset around defection, I would say, is believing in the goodness of humanity, believing that even in the darkest of situations, and in speaking to an aggressor, that there is a way to talk to someone with that mindset and find that humanity, if you're skillful, and be able to speak not out of fear or anger or hatred for what they're doing, but to be able to identify that humanity that's buried somewhere in there and speak to that goodness, to be able to make a decision which is actually not harming anyone, is actually diffusing and resolving the situation. So, this is really great work, and it really takes a mature mindset behind the work to be able to implement it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's why we are trying to remind their sympathy and empathy, so they can still remember they are also human like us, and with gun or without gun, they might know that they have to keep mercy on the civilians. What their duty is just to protect us, not to kill us. We are reminded it.
Right. And along with that, many of the people in the military are Buddhists, and Buddhism is a value that even the top generals promote. And so I'm wondering, when you're talking to soldiers or their wives and you're reminding them of certain kinds of commitments to protect people and looking for this humanity buried within, where does the role of Buddhism and Buddhist values fit into this kind of conversation?
I'm not very sure about that because I was in the military just only 8 years, so I'm not sure about it. But they really value about their their higher position ones, because they was trained to obey the orders, not to question about it. So, all we are also doing, texting them by fiber, because a friend of me got the phone numbers, a lot of phone numbers, like thousands of them. So there's also a warrior who text them by Bible application to want to join CDM, and so they can help. Some soldiers believe and interested. Some are saying abusing words and block. So.
Right. And of course, this is where the spy games come into it, because you have two strangers on both sides of the line that have to trust each other. You are offering soldiers to defect on Viber, and there's a danger that some of those soldiers could be spies that are pretending to defect and actually getting intel. The soldier himself has to also be careful, because there could be a military informant that's pretending to offer him defection and that will actually entrap him if he accepts. And so it sounds like that's a very fraught situation, the kind of spy game of both sides having to feel each other out and being total strangers to know if and how they can trust.
Yeah, of course, just trust. So we don't know each other, and some, even though we don't know each other and we can't see each other, some soldiers believe, because they wanted to know what is CDM, and as our situation was, they thought they might get better life. Of course, they are getting better lives, and some believes blindly, and some, not some, most of them don't believe us. But who cares? If there's also one person who believes us, that's our win. That's okay.
So that's all really interesting. And I really thank you for sharing this, for sharing your story, the family that you came from, and how your path to becoming a revolutionary, what you're doing now, and your involvement with these defected soldiers as well as their wives. I think that's quite educational for all of us. And we really wish everyone the best there, myself, everyone on this platform. We are doing everything we can to support you at this time. And part of that is being able to have these interviews where these voices can get out to so many other people and hear them and understand what's going on, raise awareness, and hopefully support as well. The work you're doing with defection is so important. Our nonprofit has used quite a bit of the donations we've received to be able to support the defection movement. As we've mentioned, this is the greatest hope of nonviolence that we have here, of speaking to this humanity and trying to diffuse the situation in that way. And so we really encourage listeners that are interested to, if you have the means, to be able to give a donation, of small or big, to be able to support this defection effort, which can, any donation that goes to our nonprofit can be earmarked for the work that Susan is doing, and we can make sure that we get her those funds, because this is one of the most important things we can be doing to save lives now. And Susan is at the center of this work. So we thank her for that and thank her for coming on and explaining and sharing her story here. And thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much for your precious time.
One of the most tragic aspects of the current crisis in Myanmar is how isolated Burmese protesters feel, and in fact are. This has been compounded by bank closures, and as a result, ordinary wire transfers are not possible. Thankfully, through a trusted local network, we're able to ensure that all donations successfully reach their intended target. So if you found yourself moved by today's discussion and want to do what you can to help, please consider giving to our fund, which is 100% directed towards supporting the movement. If you would like to join in our mission to support those in Myanmar who are resisting the military coup, we welcome your contribution in any form, currency, or transfer method. Every cent goes immediately and directly to funding those local communities who need it most. Donations go to support such causes as the Civil Disobedience Movement, CDM, families of deceased victims, and the purchasing of protective equipment and medical supplies. Or if you prefer, you can earmark your donation to go directly to the guest you just heard on today's show. In order to facilitate this donation work, we have registered a new nonprofit called Better Burma for this express purpose. Any donation you give on our Insight Myanmar website is now directed to this fund. Alternatively, you can visit our new Better Burma website, which is betterburma.org, and donate directly there. In either case, your donation goes to the same cause, and both websites accept credit cards. You can also give via PayPal by going to paypal.me/betterburma. Additionally, we can take donations through Patreon, Venmo, GoFundMe, and Cash App. Simply search Better Burma on each platform and you'll find our account. You can also visit either website for specific links to those respective accounts or email us at info@betterburma.org. In all cases, that's Better Burma, one word, spelled BETTERBURMA. If you would like to give in another way, please contact us. Thank you so much for your kind consideration.
Yeah.